by the Programming Club. Today we have with us Utkarsh Saxena. I'll let him introduce himself before we move on to the questions. Utkarsh, you can give a short introduction, short or long, your choice.
Yep. Hello all. I am Utkarsh Saxena. I graduated from IIT Indore in 2017 from Computer Science branch. And mostly in my college, I was mostly focused on competitive programming. And during like 4 years, I landed some internships in Amazon and Morgan Stanley. And for 1 year after college, I was working for Codenation, after which I switched to Google Munich. So I'm currently working in Google Munich, but due to Corona, I'm in India right now because we are in unexpected work from home situation. So I'm in India. And yep, I got the invite from Vishnu, I guess. I'm glad to talk to you all.
Okay, great. So we'll get into the questions. So to start off, we'll do a generic question, which is like, how and when did you start programming, and when did you get into competitive programming? Seriously.
Okay, so I used to program from class 9th in school. From class 9 to class 12, it was mostly at school level only. So I did not know about competitive programming until my first year. So it was mostly limited to the scope of what my teachers gave, and it was mostly a class level competition. So I really enjoyed coding. And when I was in first year, I think it was in the first class by Data Structures 101 by Abhishek Srivastava. And it was in this class we were briefly introduced to the concept of like a whole world of different competitive programming, in which one of our college seniors, when I was in first year, Archit Karandikar was in his fourth year, I guess, yeah. And he was mentioned to us by Abhishek sir and told that he had represented IIT Indore in ICPC World Finals. And he told that so we did not know about what is ICPC and all. So he just told that it can be considered as Olympics for programming. And he solved like 2 questions out of 12 or 13 questions in the ICPC World Finals. And that was a huge deal, according to him, which I realized 4 years later, it's really a huge deal. So solving 2 out of 15 questions, if that's considered a huge deal, then it made me curious about what this field of programming is, where it is quite prestigious to represent your institution at a global level. So that kind of motivated me towards competitive programming. And in subsequent weeks, I was introduced to Code Chef and Code Forces by Programming Club in the first semester itself. So by the Programming Club, there were some sessions. Is the voice not clear?
It's a bit grainy. So if you could like switch to, do you have a microphone, or if you could switch to something like that, it would be great.
Okay, let me try to do that.
Okay. Are you able to hear me better now? Yeah, it's better now.
Is it better?
Okay. Yeah, it's clear. Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned, I was introduced to competitive programming in my first semester by the programming club, uh, in which there were many of our seniors like Archit Karandikar, Gaurav Agarwal, which they represented our college in ICPC World Finals for 2 years. So we got excited to do something similar on those tracks. So they were kind of the big motivation for us that it's not an impossible thing to achieve, and probably we can do it. And that's how I started. And I started with Code Chef long challenges in the beginning because it's very beginner friendly also, and also uh, like if you are good at computer programming, then also there are many questions that you can do in it. So it covers a lot of large spectrum of difficulty questions. So that's how I started. I think in September 2013. That was my first long challenge, and that's how
Oh,
it's.
that's really great. Uh, Now moving on to the next question. Given you participated in the ICPC World Finals, I think it's only apt that we ask you to recall your journey to the ICPC World Finals with your team.
Hmm? So it was kind of a long journey. As I mentioned, it was mostly motivated by our seniors that were already participating in the World Finals, and we got to meet them once or twice in our college since it was first, like we were in first year and they were in fourth year, and they were doing very rigorous practice of competitive programming, so they had less time to meet with juniors or something, or we had less of guts to meet them because they were kind of pros in our time. So, and once we met them, so I think Gaurav Agarwal was in his third year, and Archit sir was in his fourth year, and they were trying to make another attempt at World Finals, and I think that was like we were not very much into competitive programming. It was just one or two long contests, and then we tried like just tried our hands on regionals, ICPC regionals, and I think Amritapuri was the easiest regionals to qualify at that time. I'm not sure about this time these days, but we tried to participate in Amritapuri regionals in 2013 in our first year, and we kind of qualified in like there are multiple rounds of shortlisting when teams say they can participate, and if they cannot, then lower teams get higher ranked and they are invited. And so uh, like it was in like third round of elimination of this elimination that uh, colleges refuse to participate, and then you get to participate in ICPC World ICPC Amritapuri regionals, and we qualified for it. And although we did not participate in because we had a low confidence of it was just a first try, and maybe we can or we cannot. So it was just a very new thing to us. So I think with that we began to uh, become more focused on practicing this kind of thing that was very different from our college curriculum. So we tried to do that in our first year, uh, like the end semester break after the year break, and we tried to do that. And in our next, we did it for like 2 years, and uh, we formed we formed a team. I found some fellow participants from my batch only, which were pretty interested in doing competitive programming, and we formed a team and tried to participate more. And like in one of the years, I think we were in second year in which Gaurav Agarwal was in his 4th year, and he wanted to form a team with us. So he wanted to form a team. So we contacted him to see whether we can participate with him or not. And it was, and he agreed that we can participate, I think. And it was quite a learning experience with him. We got to learn a lot of techniques, and just practicing with the fellow folks or senior folks uh, is pretty helpful. And, and while while we were participating in Amritapuri regionals with him, I remember one night we were traveling in the train, traveling to Amritapuri, traveling to Kharagpur, I guess, for our regionals. And at that night, he was with us when he received his, when Gaurav sir received his offer for Google. And we were pretty thrilled. Like he was the first from our batch to receive an offer from Google, Mountain View. And we were pretty excited. We were in 2nd year, so lots of motivation, mm, mm, lots of motivation we got from him. And I think in 3rd year we formed a different team just from our college, just from our year, like in 3rd year with Aditya Shah and Harshal Shah. And in 4th year we were able to qualify for ICPC regionals. So it was mostly lots of practice, cooperation from teachers that you are not attending your classes because we are participating, we are trying to practice on some other things. So most of the teachers also cooperated with our like practice that was going in parallel with the academics. So, and Abhishek sir was very supportive of this, so we got away with leaving classes, but I don't recommend it still.
That sounds like a very thrilling journey. It was great that you shared that with us. Okay, so moving on to your job right now, do you think you can give us a brief about your work at Google, what kind of work you do and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. So I work in Google Munich, and the Munich office is very much focused on core developer infrastructure. So like compiler infrastructure, how things are compiled at Google, like, and mostly lots of optimizations, lots of checks, style guides, just maintaining everything runs smoothly. And we do better and better at infrastructure, at core infrastructure level. So that's about Google Munich. And what I do is I work in core languages, more specifically C++. So I work on the C++ compiler at Google. And it's so the C++ compiler used to be GCC previously, like about 10 years ago, but it was then replaced by a more modular, more maintainable, more modifiable compiler infrastructure, which is LLVM. This is open source project, LLVM, and the C++ compiler Clang is part of LLVM project, which Google heavily contributes to. And so I mostly work on compiler infrastructure, more specifically on Clang-D. I don't know if you have used it in your daily life, and I'm not sure. It's mostly a language server. Language server is, what is a language server? So a language server is like just kind of a server that knows where your code is, how to compile it, and you can ask some set of questions to it, like where is the symbol defined? If you do some large projects, not just single file programs, which I used to do very much in my college life. But as you grow and see actual softwares that are developed over multiple files and multiple folders, and if the project gets huge, it's a little difficult to understand it. So you provide code insights like code navigation. Where is this? Let's say you are seeing a function and you want to see where is this function called. How many callers are of these this function? Let's say you want to rename a function. You want to rename all the occurrences of this in your code base. So these kind of things. Then there are other tools like editor tools. Let's say you are using an editor called, let's say, Visual Studio, and you want to just write some code. So code completion is a very useful tool for a code developer to see what things are available on when you're writing the code, and just to make you skip writing all the code yourself. It just tries to give you smart completions. So most of this year I have been trying to do these code completions, like modifying these code completions to have some to use machine learning to do these code completions in your code base. So ClangD is like a server that can provide you with code completions at a given point when you are typing some code. So previously it was not, like, machine learning was not very much heavily used in LLVM or Clang, and now we are trying to use it more and more. So it's a very nice amalgamation of compiler infrastructure and machine learning to do compiler specific things. And that's mostly what I'm doing.
That sounds like really interesting work that you're doing. So I just want to ask.
And it's all open sourced. I just want to mention.
I'm sorry.
And it's all open sourced. I just wanted to mention.
Yeah. For the people who don't know, Clang is like a C compiler, just like GCC and LLVM. Like, you could maybe like touch upon what LLVM is.
So LLVM was, so basically GCC is a compiler that compiles your C++ code to machine code. And writing tools for GCC, like you want to do modifications in your code, you want to do rename, you want to do some like you want to optimize some parts of GCC. It's not very much feasible to do that, because the way it is written, it's a very old compiler, and it's not very modular, so it's not very easily modifiable. So one of the LLVM project was invented by Chris Latner. I think he works for Google now. No, he used to work for Google, but he then moved to some other place. So he invented LLVM as one of his B.Tech projects to do these, to just compile it in a modular way. So you can write tools for it, you can do lots of stuff. You wanted to optimize the compiler, you want to do any sort of stuff. It's quite easy in LLVM as compared to GCC. And LLVM is just a framework combining the whole language, like from C++ to machine code. It's the whole framework, you just call it LLVM. And Clang is a part of LLVM, which translates C++ code to LLVM, some internal representation that can be optimized by some LLVM optimizer. So it's just made of very modular projects, and Clang is one of them. So the C compiler is one of the modules of Clang, of LLVM.
Yeah, compiler technology is always great. It's almost like magic. it's great that you work on them. So I wanted to ask how much of your CP and algorithmic knowledge translates to the work you do every day in Google on LLVM and Clang?
It's like those questions when you say how much of your physics stuff that you learned in 11th, 12th contribute to what you're doing today. The thing is, it sharpens your brain. It makes you good at it makes you good at receiving information. Like, given this information, I want to solve this problem. So it just makes you good at problem solving. So it might be just at a random point of day, you might want to write, since it's a compiler, it's almost always you deal with trees. You deal with and also I'm doing machine learning, so we are focusing on decision forests. So it's very much focused on traversing trees, optimizing the traverses of trees, and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it is mostly like competitive programming gives you a more broader perspective of seeing the information that you have and trying to solve the problem that you have at hand. So it just makes you good at solving problems, solving ambiguous problems that you can face in the day.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I just want to go off a tangent and ask you, like, whether the compiler design that you learned in your BTech, like, does that help with this, with the work you're doing right now?
Nope. Short answer.
Okay, all right. But you do deal with compiler theory and stuff like that.
Yes, we do, but the things that we got to learn in our compiler course was very basic. We did not, or probably I didn't learn it that good, probably. I'm not sure. But there are much more things than just a parser or just lexical analysis of the code of a language that you do. It's when you see a compiler at work, there is a lot of things that are going on, and parsing and lexical analysis that we used to do in our labs was very small part of it, although it can give you a brief insight of what things might be happening. Like from what I learned in my compiler classes, I might invent my own language, which is very basic, but I can never compile a C++ program using that language because there is a lot of things that actually go in programming language than just compilation, and the compiler has to take care of many things than just translating it to code. It's optimization, it's compiling it correctly. There are new versions of C++ and that get modified, so you have to modify all parts of compiler accordingly, and you have to be good at it. Like, you cannot have C++ to be slow just because it has new features. So we have C++ because it is fast. Otherwise, there is no reason to switch to languages like Java or Python, which are much less complicated, but you get low-level access in C++, and if you add abstractions in multiple C++ versions like 14, 17, 20, 22, you need to ensure that it's still at least as fast as the previous version. So those things are not very well taught, and I don't really expect that to be taught in a bachelor's program. But just lexical analysis or semantic analysis is fine, but maybe if I had a look at LLVM before, I would be much more interested in that, but I was not introduced to that. Maybe I was not interested before.
All right. Since you talked about C++, I'm going off on a tangent. Do you evaluate Rust at Google? Do you know anything about that? Does your team evaluate that?
Evaluate what?
Like the Rust language. So since you talked about low-level stuff, that's why I'm asking.
You mean evaluate the previous compiler to new compiler?
Not exactly. Like, do you guys like look into it? Like, think about using that instead of C++? Because Rust is arguably a safer language.
Yes, I'm not sure. Like,
All right.
that are going, like, I think I'm not allowed to comment on that, but there are things going on inside Google that might be C++. But
yeah, I suspected you wouldn't be able to talk about it. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. Given that you worked at Codenation as well as Google, you have a unique experience of working at a really huge company as well as a really small company with a tight team. So what is your take on that, and how do you think that a big company and a small company differ each other?
yep. So there are some things that I want to differentiate. So one is work culture, and one is the technology that you're working on. The work culture can be very different between huge giant companies that value developer productivity and mental health and all this kind of stuff that we didn't used to care about, but small startups might. So the management there is not. This is being recorded. Okay. So
we can choose not to release it publicly, so it's fine if you want to. Like, we won't share it with anyone. Basically, you have that option as well if you want to.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. So like small companies have, like, in general, they have a lot of work that you get to do, and the management is not very well done, and it it might happen that you get to do a lot of work, but you might not get recognized or things like that. That did not happen with me, fortunately, but it used to happen with some of the colleagues, and uh, so those kind of things can happen if the company is not very well experienced in terms of maintaining developer trust, you can say, employee trust, or uh, things like that. But like, as compared to Google, it is very much like you get to do whatever you want to do. You get to come at office whenever you want to come. You leave whenever you want to go. And the work culture is pretty great at these companies like Google, Facebook. I don't know about Microsoft, but at least these companies, they have, that's one of the promising, like one of that things that attract many developers and employees to come and work there, because the work culture is quite nice, and depending and it also has like a lot of very much experienced folks than as compared to startups. So in startups, it's mostly young people. So there is a lot of creativity there as compared to Google, because the employees are young. But in Google, there are many folks that are very, very much experienced in whatever field you're working on. Like in Clang and LLVM, I'm working on. So my manager, used to be manager, was working at Google for about 12 years. And if you get to learn what contributions he has done to LLVM, it's kind of daunting, because that's kind of impossible thing that people have done. And you get motivated, and also things, and also things happen like it's kind of at Google they call it imposter syndrome, and that's kind of a thing that you feel uh, when you are surrounded by people that are very, very much qualified than you are, and you think that you have somehow made it to that company, but you don't actually belong there. You don't actually deserve to be there. So that kind of stuff is very common in Nooglers. Nooglers are new joinees at Google, and it's very common. And I sometimes feel it myself. Sometimes when communicating with very senior folks, and it's kind of both daunting and very much motivating to see people like those, which you might not get to contact in startups like Codenation. On the other hand, Codenation, I got to work on very vast set of spectrum of technologies in Codenation, which is not possible in Google because their developer infrastructure is hugely mature, and they do not expect you to work on, let's say, Docker or write your own uh, server. Like, let's say, in Coordination, we used to work on Django. We were responsible for deploying our server on, let's say, AWS or any cloud service that we were owning. And we were responsible if it goes down, then we had to do some kind of Dockerization of it so that it keeps running, and we need to do lots of orchestration and infrastructure work there. And it's kind of it reduces developer productivity, but it gives you a lot of experience to see like there are many other things than just writing code that you might have to do when you are in a smaller firm. But in Google, in large companies, they have invested heavily in abstracting out these features so that software developers are just focused on writing good code. They don't have to worry about where the code is deployed, how much QPS it can handle. It can scale as much as you want. They have millions of machines. You can deploy it in Asia, Europe, Australia, at any point in the globe. In just one click, you just have to just write a config and it will deploy. You don't have to worry about the budget. You don't have to worry about anything. It's basically you just write the QPS you want to serve, and it just scale. It just gets scaled at that amount. But under the hood, what things are happening on the downside, you don't get to know. You don't get to experience what it takes to make that system very easy to deal with. So that's kind of things like you don't get that experience. But on the other hand, it's very easy to do for you as a developer.
Yeah, that's a great insight into big and small companies. So let's move on to the next question. So I wanted to ask whether you have any specific advices for second years, third years, or first years, or even final years.
Advice for this work.
General career advice, like do you so it's kind of like when you look back onto your like college life, do you have something specific that you would have told your old self?
Not very sure. I might want to say that I should have focused more on the compiler lectures that I now feel of, because I honestly I did not focus very much on academics because I was mostly focused on things other than that. And there were many people in our batch that were doing extracurricular activities, like not extracurricular but apart from academics. So like competitive programming, as I think you had a talk with Sudhakar as he was doing security challenges, And there are many things that you can do, and academics is not the only thing that you should do. Try to expand your expertise while having a grasp over the basics academics. It might not, like, you might not have a good grasp over all of the things that you want, like, but there must be a niche in which you have some kind of expertise so that you can say, I have some kind of expertise in this area and I have some knowledge in different kind of areas. So competitive programming is just one of the niches that people do these days. And there are many these days: security, machine learning, data science, and just have fun in those niches apart from academics. And even if academics doesn't go well, it's more or less fine. It just works fine.
Okay, someone made me ask this. So he wants to know how you managed to get a CPI of 9.4, even when you're saying that you didn't focus on academics.
Okay. So there were two people in our batch, Ketan and Ashwarya. They were very good in academics, and anything that they do, they were very good. And I used to devote 10 days before NSEMS, or uh, before the SEMS, to just deep dive into those things that happened in the classes. And since I have not been attending many classes, so I used to rely upon the notes provided by those guys. And it just used to work fine. I don't know. The questions were not very hard.
Yeah, it all worked out as a good enough answer, I guess. So yeah, let's get into some AMA questions. So we had floated a Google form, and we've collected some questions that are generally asked by the students here. So the first question is, it's a very generic question. So if you like, you can like refer somewhere else if you want to. So it's like resources and roadmap for learning competitive programming, probably for a beginner.
Probably for a beginner, the best answer is just start. Don't think too much, and you will get to the resources if you want. And if you're having fun, then you will probably get the resources you want. The internet is huge, and you can find better answers. And
Yeah.
there are lots of motivation. I feel really proud of our juniors that I think this year also qualified for ICPC World Finals. Unfortunately, due to Corona, it got postponed until next year. But I've been in contact with those folks also. I think things are going well for competitive programming at IIT Indore, and you can always contact us or any other senior that you want to get guidance or any stuff that you want. For me, just motivation work and like seeing other people doing well, and just knowing that it's not an impossible thing to do was enough for me.
Yeah, I think even we have even the finalists on the call. So to all the juniors, reach out to them. Be like Utkarsh Saxena. So anyway, let's move on to the next question. Another person had a question, like he's not able to, while he's like familiar with the basics and the core concepts of CP, he's not able to devise algorithms for code forces D. I'm not sure what that means, but
So there are two different answers if you are focusing on Div 2 and like Division 2D or Division 1D. So they have completely different answers, but I can answer for Division 2D. So Division. So don't focus on these right now. The best thing that you can do is give live contests, and So the best advice that I got from my seniors from different colleges, like seniors in competitive programming, was doesn't matter how many questions you solve in a live contest. Let's say you solve n problems. Always try to solve the n plus 1th problem after the contest without looking at the editorial for, let's say, 1 day. And just try to give your best at the n plus 1th problem after the contest without looking for help. And if it works, like if you have a group of people that like group of programmers in IIT Indore, like within your group, try to discuss those problems and try to learn more things from your colleagues. I have learned twice as much from my colleagues when I was in college than I would have done from just doing it myself. So don't focus on the difficulty you are getting to solve in a live contest. Just try to solve the next easiest problem in the contest that you were not able to solve, and you will get better and better subsequently.
All right. Okay, let's move on. The next question, I'm not sure if it's relevant, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So the question is regarding data science roles. Is it possible to get into a data science related role right after graduation? It's probably for BTech graduation. So I think it's related to like there's not enough roles, like opportunities for that. So
In just after graduation from, okay, I'm not very sure about how many people join for data science just after graduation, but I've seen many of them join after masters, at least masters. But I've been in contact with many people from like data science or machine learning. The main hubs are Switzerland and Mountain View, of course. So many people that I've been in contact with are mostly PhDs working on research papers. So I don't expect just graduation to work on there, but adequate amount of work experience can count to be an equivalent of another research level thing that you have done. But like there might be companies that are willing to take undergrad students as undergrad as data science researchers.
okay, all right. Now the next question is a bit weird. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I don't know if even if you can. So they want to know how much you save, probably in terms of money.
How much is safe? No. 25% goes into rent when you're living outside India, and about, like, you can just get the stats about the taxes, the rents, statistics per country, or if you want to do a job in India, then it's pretty much the taxes are like just 30%, and the rents is not huge in India. So I won't give an answer specifically about me because it usually depends on your lifestyle, like whether you want to save for something or you want to spend. So it depends from person to person. And I think these kind of statistics you can get easily on the internet about how much money you can have as a software developer of this much experience and what rent you would be paying there and how much living cost is there. So it's pretty much good at this.
Yeah, sure. That's a good enough answer. Uh, so someone wanted to know about what do you think about the ML/AI hype and the job opportunities surrounding that.
I have not been very well acquainted with the ML and AI world, but it certainly feels like there is a little more hype than required because there are many people that just want to go into it without knowing the basics or without dwelling into research. So there are two kinds of, according to me, there is two kinds of uh, ML things you can do. Either you can do research on it, you can develop your own models, you can develop your algorithms. That requires research, a very tremendous amount of research of ongoing papers, and it certainly takes time and doing those kind of stuff. Then there are things like you can do just to incorporate ML stuff into your product, and that does not require the uh, there are many developers, like there are many efforts going on to abstract out those things uh, of deploying an ML model, training an ML model inside Google itself. Uh, just abstract out the details so that the software developer does not have to know about what's actually going on in those areas. So everyone can have easy access to ML. So there are then this kind of stuff that you can do to incorporate ML into your thing that you are doing. So, so the first kind in which the research is involved, it is very much challenging. And the second stuff that just incorporates ML into your work without knowing very much details about how the algorithm under the hood is working is is actually the ML hype that people are uh, trying to incorporate ML into your software. So that's not very much ML researchy thing, or it's just incremental gains that you're getting because of ML in your software. But actual ML really lies in the niche of the algorithm that is currently under the hood and can learn a lot of stuff. So that's that's the difference I feel between me as a software developer that uses ML and an equivalent ML researcher that has a PhD in ML research, that is who are collaborating with us to incorporate their algorithms in our project. So they try to they try to give life to their algorithms by giving it to different projects, and we get the benefits of ML that are going on. So there are two sides, and one of the sides certainly deserves much more appreciation. Like the research thing is very much sophisticated, and there are very common people that I've been interacting with. So I feel it has a lot of potential, and it's a lot of effort also.
All right. Okay, moving on to the next question. Should a student focus on CP or development mode? So I think this is for a third year student, if I remember correctly. So they want to know whether they should focus on CP, given they already know the basics of CP, or on development / doing projects more.
It totally depends on your interests. So if you know basics of CP and you can code very well given a problem, it doesn't have to be very algorithm specific, because in any of the interview questions you don't get you are not supposed to answer very tough algorithmic questions. So it totally depends on your interests. So if you want to do software development or security or any other thing, some basic amount of knowledge of how to translate your thoughts into program is the basics that almost every company is looking for. And CP is just one way to get that.
All right. Someone wanted to know the difference in work-life balance between college and in Google.
College, you get to sleep a lot, and in uh, I'm not sure about, like, apart from the work from home thing that is going on these days, uh, there is a pretty much good work-life balance, at least at Google and big companies. Uh, it might depend, like, it is vastly different from college life because you get to do whatever you want whenever you want, and things change a lot of things change. And when you look back at college life, it was much more easier and sorted out. And well, on the other hand, you have a new motive or something that you work upon. Like in college, you get to work on some projects that you find some time to work on or some time don't. But in work life, in actual work, you are devoting almost all your time in that. And having a good work-life balance is pretty much good. Like you can enjoy the weekends or after. Uh, like it cannot be compared with college life versus the work life. College life is much more relaxed, I would say.
Okay, all right. So the next question is, it's a bit weird. What was an unforgettable memory at IIT Indore for you?
Forgettable, I should not forget it. Hmm. On top of my head, it's only quite nerdy things that happened. Like when we qualified for World Finals, we did not expect the least to be qualified because we were just at just of being qualified. Then I remember a pretty good memory of getting to know how Gaurav Agarwal was first selected in Google. I wrote a small blog for it, but the way we realized was we were in the train, as I told you, and on the way to Kharagpur, and he was sleeping like before below a berth, and me and Aditya Shah we were talking, discussing some question, and suddenly we received a Facebook update, and it was from Times of India. And Times of India had a cover story for Gaurav Agarwal, and it was pretty weird that you were getting to know that he was selected for Google from Times of India than he himself, which was he was sitting just one berth lower than us, and and that kind of stuff was very uh, intimidating, exciting, and all of those things because Google was, and it's still kind of a dream job when we were in our first or second years. And getting to know a person who was actually in Google from Times of India was, who was sitting just beside us, was kind of unforgettable.
Wow, that's a really cool anecdote. Thank you for sharing that. Anyway, moving on. Someone wants to know whether you have thought about doing higher studies, probably masters.
I had thought when I left the college in 2017, I was preparing for masters when I was in coordination. But things changed when I received an offer from Google Munich. I actually thought of pursuing masters while doing job at Google, and Google actually gives you a lot of benefit if you want to do higher studies while working at Google. They try to cover two-thirds of your tuition fees if you want. So while working at Google, I actually was pretty motivated at one point of time, but then because of work, I usually got sidetracked, and it was mostly because I wanted to study more, uh, but due to the experience that I was getting at Google itself, I thought it was uh, more or less the same kind of experience I would have gotten there. So I kind of dropped, but uh, I have people that have done masters just after uh, college. They they were planning in the fourth year itself, so they got just after fourth year they got admission into their master's program. I think my teammate Aditya Shah, to, if you get hold of him, he might tell you more about his master's experience also. He qualified for world finals from his master's college also.
All right, we'll try to get him on this show then. Anyway, so the next few questions, they're really specific. So for a person who's rated 2000 on code forces, should they stick to normal contest problems or should they focus on learning new algorithms and concepts?
Let me just see what's 2000 in these days. Okay, so with 2000, I think I'm not sure if you are trying to aim for ICPC, then you are in pretty good state. And having more collaborative discussions of harder problems, like Archit sir tried to um, advise us to try harder questions when doing practice, like they one E's or they one D's. And
Okay, just a thing. Someone wants me to interrupt you and say that the ratings have become simpler on CF. Like 2000 probably doesn't mean what it meant when in your time.
okay, so is it blue or
Someone like Devan, sure, Kalpit, like just chime in, man. What is 2000 now?
I don't want the rating. How many problems can you solve in division?
Yeah, how many? Devansh, Miten,
I
anyone?
think solving 3 in Div 2 takes you to 2000 easily, 3 or 4.
Okay, fine. Then probably division one or these don't make sense. Uh, then, as I said before, like solving division two Ds at practice and practice more to get more command over division two Ds and E's at least would give you good advantage over, like if you are aiming for world finals like ICPC, then I would recommend doing more practice for D's and E's of division two. But if you are not aiming for competitive programming and doing something else, then once in a while doing division 2Ds would make sense to get a grasp of translating your thoughts into code. And that's the only thing that actually matters.
All right. So the next question from the same person is, so keep the 2000 in mind. Is your opinion on YouTube versus books versus contests on like while learning CP?
Ooh, yes, recently I've seen a lot of people contributing to One Academy and YouTube for some of my colleagues only with their competitive programming lectures, or if you are referring to them. Uh, I would say you can always have a look at that. It's not, yeah, Whitehead Junior too, exactly, where the cloud is actually in the cloud. Um, and yeah, so now by an academy, I mean they are pretty qualified. I think some of them are ICPC World finalists also, so they are not those cloud in the cloud folks. But yeah, it totally depends on you. Practice certainly makes you more robust and gives you more confidence over yourself, while video lectures or taking a look, what was the other thing, books, I don't remember reading books. I think there was one thing, Comparative Programming 1, 2, 3 by some Singaporean guy, which we requested Abhishek sir to get us into a library, but we never had a look at that. There are some books that have pretty good problems, collection of problems for some specific Olympiads. So it's not from the author, it's just a collection. So it's always good to have a look at those kind of problems. But solving Codeforce's gems and harder problems will always give you more exposure. And if you're like more exposure towards difficult problems, but if you are trying to just develop your interest, then YouTube videos would make sense. I don't think they are deep, but I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. So the next question is by the same person, the 2000 rated person. So he's asking whether he should focus on, given he already has a base in CP, should he focus on development and ML?
Development and ML. For development, I did not try for development in my founding years at college. And there are certainly people from our college also, that have done great at developing and securing GSOC internships and GSOC mentorship. And while at college, I think Abhinav Tripathi is one of the folks you can contact. He is from our batch, electrical, who has done quite great at development while he was doing, like, even in the first year, he was just amazing at developing a lot of things. He had knowledge of a lot of things, so that kind of gives you an advantage over a lot of things that are going on in computer science. So a lot of softwares, a lot of frameworks, and so I might not be the best person to give you the best thing for development. I would say open source is the best place to learn, but I haven't myself tried to learn from open source. So it's just my daily part of the job, so I just do that. But in a random day, I wouldn't have tried in my college because it just gets, it just needs a lot of knowledge about the code base that you're working on, so to contribute to actual open source. So if you're interested, then do development. But it's mostly just have fun doing whatever you like. I had fun doing CP. I did not like development or ML.
All right. Okay, moving on to the next question. So they want to know, how does the SDE role, so I think it's probably, they're probably referring to the levels, change with experience at Google?
I joined as SD3, L3, sorry, SD2. They call it level 3 at Google, and that's what most Nooglers get, like undergrad or 1 year experiences folks. They get level 3. After 1 or 2 years, you are promoted to, if you're doing well, you're promoted to level 4. And after some experience based on your work, so the time duration doesn't really matter. It can take 1 year for some people, and can take 5 years for other people. So the time duration doesn't really have a say in your promotions, and it's mostly whether you are performing at the next level. If the people around you feel that you are performing at the next level for, let's say, 6 months, then you will be promoted. Otherwise, you will be given feedback about how things can be done better. At level 5, things get very different. So L5, I think every Googler is expected to reach level 5 at some point in your career, and that kind of knowledge is equivalent to like SD3 of Amazon, I think. That's what they call it there, and equivalent there. So at that point, you have two options: whether to perform consistently at that level, or relax a bit and do a little bit less and still perform at that level. But if you want promotion after level 5, you have like then the expectations from that level increases exponentially. At level 5, you are an individual contributor. At level 6, you must lead a team. At level 7, you must lead a team of teams. And at level 8, you must be a director or something to manage, let's say, C++ efforts of Google. You're responsible for all the C++ efforts at Google. That makes you level 8 or 9, I think. Level 10 Level 10 means you are extremely distinguished, not only at Google, but all around the world. You are known for something that you have done. So that is an exponential decay in the number of people and exponential increase in number of in the expectations of the role.
Wow, that's that's a bit scary, to be honest.
Yeah, it
Anyway,
gets scary after level 5. At level 5, until level 5, it's fine.
yeah, let's move on. So someone wants to know how much ownership does one get as an entry level engineer at Google? Probably based on the projects you do.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I've been through a quite nice experience and team where the team gives a lot of ownership to you. You get to design a lot of stuff, but still under guidance, which is pretty much you don't get at a startup. You might be very creative, you might be full of ideas, but at a starting level, you always need some guidance. So that's I kind of feel that's the best kind of balance between creativity and like the new things that you're bringing to the team, and the guidance from experienced folks. Let's say at level 5 would guide you, assign some tasks, or give you feedback about the design must look like this, and it always gives you confidence to propose anything you want. But in the end, some senior guy would say that you might do something like this, which will make things better. So you have some people to rely on, and so at junior levels, there are always people to have you back, and it gives you a lot of confidence to do whatever you want and propose whatever you want, and that's a lot of very good balance between ownership and a well guided effort that will probably lead you to success.
Do you think that that's specific to your team, or does that translate to most teams in Google?
It has certainly happened to my team, but in my team, our experiences might differ with demographics and teams as well. So it might not be possible that there is a lot of scope of creativity, so you might not end up doing very risky things. So in that case, you will not need much guidance, and in those cases, you would probably own it much better. But in some cases, the projects can be very ambiguous, and you might end up wasting a lot of time of yourself if you don't ask questions or look for guidance at good at like certain amount of time. So it depends on the project, and it depends on the basically on the project, not on the team, because guidance is always available to you. Like senior folks are always there, but it depends whether you need it or not.
All right. So the next question is, how is okay? How challenging are the projects at Google? Does the work get repetitive?
It again depends on your team. If you're in a product team that is not very innovative, I don't want to comment on any products, but uh, Google is a very large organization, and the work culture also can differ with demographics. And mm, but on large scale, we try to maintain that the work that people do, they are always satisfied with that. But in the real world, at the end of the day, you might have to do things that you don't like or you get bored. And if you are looking into very uh, things that need expertise, then like, for example, machine learning, for example, infrastructure of distributed systems, compiler technology, anything that needs a higher technical advantage, then it always has technically challenging projects. But on the other hand, then if you're working on if you're working on some projects that do not need a lot of modifications, or you just need to maintain that, then you might feel it boring at some point of time. And it's always fine and encouraged to switch teams in those cases. If you want to change your projects, if you want to change your team, then people are very smooth about it. It's always fine.
So I guess that segues nicely into the next question. So I think you already answered that. The next question is, how easy is it to change teams within Google?
It is quite easy. So we have an internal job posting thing like LinkedIn. We have internal job postings there. So managers or team leads that have vacancies in their teams, they post jobs there. Like, let's say a level 4 or level 5 wanted with these kind of experience, and it just requires one meeting. We don't call it an interview. It's just a team match round in which the manager and the candidate, that might be the Googler, will get to know each other and the work that the Googler have done in the past, and what the team lead or the manager is expected is will expect them to do in the new team. And if it's a match, if the manager thinks that you are very well suitable, and also the candidate thinks that I would enjoy this work, then it's a higher. It just takes one meeting, 30 minutes, to decide that.
Okay, all right. There's a question in chat. If you could answer that, that would be great. Can you read that? It says, is Google heavy on work documentation too? Talking about stuff like project tracking, etc.
What do you mean on work documentation? You mean like, okay. We are certainly heavy on code documentation, but work documentation is equally important, because you don't expect yourself to be the only person that is working on the project, to be working on the project for the next several years. So it's heavily encouraged to do documentation, to do design documentations, to consult senior people on your design documentations. You just write, before writing a project, you're expected to do some design proposal of your project and consult some senior people. and get some comments from them to see whether it looks good. It also serves a documentation of what is going on in your service and things like that. So it's heavily encouraged and it's very valued upon. It's a valuable thing to do.
I think he means documentation in the sense whether there's a roadmap, like you already plan the future out ahead.
Yes, there is a lot of planning. Mostly senior people are involved in those kind of planning, like level 5 team leads, those kind of people. We do year ahead planning, we do quarterly plannings, quarterly evaluations of what things have been done, what things are left over for the next quarter, what things we planned for the last year, how did we do, so these kind of stuff. So planning is important when you are dealing with so many developers. So at, let's say at a director level, you want to know, you have 70, 100 employees under you, and you always want to know that what they are doing and what they have done without being very intrusive. And so you just consult their team leads and just get a one document thing about how things are going on, what you plan for doing in the next year, that kind of stuff. So planning is obviously important.
Okay, all right. Another question from the chat. So he wants to know whether there's any other ways to practice CP other than solving the contests and absolving them.
For me, just contests and absolving wouldn't have make sense if there were not equally competitive fellow programmers in my college, in my batch. If you have discussion groups, times of like having some team competitions, then discussion of things that we do. I like most of the time when we were having dinner in mess, always, almost always, we were discussing some questions over there, and discussions are really well for molding you as and gathering experiences from other people always helps. Like if there are 3 people and in a day they do 10 questions, 10 out, and 3 out of 10 questions were very nice. So at the end of the day, if you discuss those 3 questions each, so at the end of the day, you have 9 good questions to read upon, while you did just 10.
Okay, great answer. And another CP question. This is hard to articulate. So they want to know what kinds of topics you've seen on the higher end of problems. And he mentions 7-star on CodeChef as well.
CodeChef long is pretty different from actual live contests like short contests. So I would say I just used to do it for fun. I would say like you have 10 days or you want to do. At the end, it's mostly like, so these days it's not very, I'm not sure about these days, but at the end of about when I was, when I used to participate at the end of my college, the problems were not very unique because uh, they had to make questions at the end of at every month. So, and I have been also part of problem setting uh, of those CodeShip long challenges. So the quality is quite rare about very unique or good problems. They might involve very lengthy uh, uh, algorithms about some unique data structure that might not help you in a short contest. But for like courtship long is not the recommended way to uh, practice at the end when you are looking for some uphill uh, difficulty. I would recommend doing division one problems, D, E, C maybe. And yeah, the topics there are, it's been 2 years now. The topics are mostly strings, advanced problems of string matching, graphs, and I don't expect very unique data structures to be involved at any point of ICPC regionals and world finals. So very unique problems about leaps and palindromic trees and whatnot. I don't expect people to code that. So in a live contest, so those things may, and yeah, I think max flows was one of the topics that was heavily asked because it requires less amount of code but huge amount of logical thinking to model that problem as
All right. Now we are down to the last question. So the last question is, what subjects do you think should be focused more in the CSE curriculum? So probably for a CSE student, what should he
don't
take
know.
that?
I think data structure is certainly one of them. Then in your second years, I would say formal languages. I really enjoyed that. I think that's the name of the course. Formal languages, because that gives you a complete structure about how to say things in computer science and express your grammar and it's a base of computers if compiler design. And operating system is certainly very underrated topic that I did. Like I did not foresee the importance of it while I was doing the course. Now that I look back upon computers, operating system was it is very useful and just to get an understanding of what things are going on. Database, I'm not sure. Most of the things are very basic. It's covered in most of the databases, and you do very limited database design if you are a software engineer. If you are a database engineer, then probably it makes more sense to do more of that. What are the other things? Computer graphics. I don't know.
All right. All right. With that, we've come to the end of the session. Thank you, Utkarsh, for your time. And yeah, that's it.
Thank
You can
you.
stop. Yeah, welcome. Nitin, you can stop recording.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye bye. Thank you for your time. Like seriously.
I need to add that, like, before stopping the recording, do you want to talk anything like in general, like anything, if you want to talk about?
I think I mostly covered what I wanted to say. I certainly feel bad about you people attending this from your homes. I wouldn't have imagined like this situation. Is the college open? I don't know. I suppose you are in at your homes for 5 to 6 months now.
Yeah, we are all stuck at home.
Yeah, I cannot imagine that when I was in college. I such a wasted time. But like the college is more about the people you get to know around yourself, maybe for fun, recreation, or studies. And sadly, just academic lectures online might uh, not be the best way. Yeah, I feel sad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. All right. Thank you anyway. All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.